What is up, guys? Rick Hackus here, and we're talking about the Touch of Malice. Now, this is the King's Fall Raid exotic primary scout rifle for the Taken King. This is one of the coolest looking exotics ever created by Bungie, and there's a lot of hype around this gun. But we're discussing today whether or not it's actually good. Now, this weapon is acquired for completing the Old Hunger quest. You get this quest line when you first start out in the King's Fall Raid, and it's given out by Eris. There's a lot of steps to this quest line, but what it really boils down to is that you simply have to collect 45 calcified fragments. As you reach certain roadblocks, for example, when you get 15 total calcified fragments and 25 and so on, you're going to be given new steps in the Old Hunger quest. Eventually, when you've done all these steps and you have 45 calcified fragments, you will be given the Touch of Malice. Now, let's start out the assessment of this gun by looking at its perks and what it brings to the table. Firstly, the perk that it has passively unlocked is called Touch of Malice. What this does is that when you are down to the last bullet in your 11-round magazine, that bullet never empties from your magazine. It just constantly regenerates. It doesn't take it from your reserve ammo. It just constantly goes 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, no matter how many times you shoot it. Now, when it's doing this, you are actually going to be dealing double the damage, but at a cost of a little portion of your health. So you're going to be dealing massive damage per second, but it is going to be hurting you in the process. The next exotic perk for this gun is called Touch of Mercy. What this perk does is that when you kill 3 enemies in a close time frame within each other, you're going to regenerate a bit of your health. This obviously is the wombo combo between the Touch of Malice. Yes, you're going to be losing your health, but you're going to be dealing so much damage that it really isn't too difficult to be getting triple kills, therefore healing yourself and allowing you to just deal more and more damage. Now, that sounds great on paper, but does it actually work in game? Well, I have to say that using this gun both before and after unlocking the Touch of Mercy perk, it definitely makes a difference in your survivability. Without that perk, I was behind cover a lot. I was really just constantly waiting for my health to regenerate, and you weren't able to go on too many sprees with the double damage. However, once you actually do get the perk, you will find that your health definitely does regenerate after getting triple kills, and it really does overall help in your survivability. Not much as I think I expected, but enough that I noticed a considerable improvement in my overall survivability. It also should be noted that this gun does have a secret perk in that it actually fires fully automatic if you hold the trigger. It's not very secret for long because you'll realize this as soon as you use the weapon. Now, let's just talk about this gun's overall performance in PvE. Well, I think it's quite telling that after a while of utilizing this gun, the way I ended up using the perks and utilizing the features of this gun was essentially that I would reload a lot. I wouldn't really be taking advantage of the double damage too much. I would essentially use this gun where I would shoot its normal 11 rounds, and then usually after not being able to finish off an enemy, if it was a higher tier enemy like an Axis Hobgoblin, or a better example is an Axis Minotaur, I would then dip into the double damage version, lower my health a little bit, but very quickly finish off that high tier enemy, reload, and go right back to it. I certainly wasn't able, especially against multiple lower tier enemies where you're being shot at all angles, like kind of in big engagement zones. I wasn't able to just go around the entire fight dealing double damage. I did find myself really having to reload, if not simply wait behind cover until I regenerated enough health so that I could go back to dealing the double damage mode. Yes, your damage output is insane with this gun, but people tend to underestimate just how important it is to have a high life total. It's also important to remember that this gun not only simply lowers your health, but also prevents you from regenerating health if you think of it this way. You know, you only regenerate health after waiting and not being in combat, not being damaged for a certain amount of time. So if you kill an enemy, wait like 5 seconds, like let's say you regen health after 5 seconds, if you kill an enemy then wait a bit, and then kill an enemy at 4 seconds, you're now going to have to wait a whole nother 5 seconds for the regen to start, and it can really just delay extremely long periods of time before you actually start regenerating your health, and that can put you in danger, especially in long, drawn-out PvE engagements when multiple waves of enemies are spawning. That being said, it's certainly not the biggest deal to just reload this gun and start from scratch. Now in PvE, the times that I found the double damage most useful was firstly for DPSing bosses. There's certain bosses that don't shoot at you for certain periods of time, maybe their aggro is on a different player, and you could really deal a lot of damage when you were utilizing the double damage mode of this gun. Your DPS went through the roof. It also should be noted actually that on the raid, when you are in the portions of the raid that you get invincibility shields when you're fighting Crota, and also when you're fighting the Death Singers right before Crota, you can actually shoot this gun inevitably. Your health doesn't lower when you're shooting this gun in double damage mode, so you can just deal phenomenal DPS when you're doing those raid fights. And as I mentioned before, this gun was very effective against higher tier enemies like Reaver Captains. You could shoot them with the first 11 rounds and really start to stun lock them and finish them off with the double damage end of the magazine as well. But again, the fact that you hurt yourself simply can't be ignored. If I was doing extremely high level content like a Nightfall, like the raid on hard when it eventually comes out, I'm probably not going to be using the Touch of Malice just because it increases my chances to die so much. Now let's move on to its performance in PvP. Here I'm even more torn than I was in the PvE segment because firstly, there is no denying that the Touch of Malice absolutely melts people. When you're doing double damage, it is dealing 62 damage for a headshot on another Guardian, and it's shooting as fast as the fast shooting scout rifles like the Deadshot Luna. The time to kill for this weapon is absolutely insane. However, there are certainly some downsides as well. First off, this weapon doesn't have the greatest stability, and although it doesn't matter as much in PvE, in PvP it does matter a lot. Missing a shot is no longer just something that lowers your time to kill, it actually hurts you as well. To be quite honest, if I got a blue or legendary fast-firing scout rifle that had the same stability stats as this weapon, and just like this weapon, had no perks to increase stability, I would probably just delete it immediately, and I'm sure a lot of you would too. Now, of course, those weapons aren't doing nearly as much damage as the Touch of Malice, but the stability factor is definitely an issue. And the second negative about this gun, especially in PvP, and it's again something people tend to forget, is yes, this gun absolutely melts people, but it's gonna make people melt you too, because your time to kill is insane with this gun, as I've already stated. However, you're making everyone else's time to kills insane against you too. There's a lot of guns that deal, 60, 70, 80 damage, somewhere in that, and frankly are pretty close to 2-shot kills. There's a lot of guns that are 4-shot kills that are actually pretty close to 3-shot kills, and by hurting yourself, by doing damage just by shooting this weapon in the double damage mode, you are making your enemies require 1 less shot to kill you as well. So again, yes, the time to kill for the Touch of Malice in PvP is unbelievable, but anyone who gets in a fair fight with you is going to find that their time to kill increases as well. With all that being said, it's certainly not a bad gun in PvP. It's really funny to watch a lot of people run at you with shotguns thinking they can take a few shots and get to you and shotgun you, and that's just not an option if you're using the Touch of Malice. So overall, with everything in consideration, is the Touch of Malice a good gun? Well, I would have to say if there are only 2 options, good and bad, I would have to put this in the good category. The power potential of this gun is just so high, there's simply no denying it. However, I do think this gun is overrated by a lot of people, especially when it comes to that PvP aspect. People don't realize just how much you end up kill trading because you're lowering your health so much when using this gun. If I had to rate it out of 10 overall, I would give it a 7 out of 10. Now that's still a pretty damn good score, and you should definitely try to get your Touch of Malice if you don't have it already. But with that being said, this is no pre-nerf Vex Mythoclast. And that's it for the video. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please remember to rate and share the video. It really helps me out. And if you want to see Destiny content similar to this, please remember to hit that subscribe button. If you want to get in touch with me, the best way is on Twitter. That's going to be linked in the description down below, as is my Twitch channel, which you can follow as well. Again, I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good day.